Hey everyone, I'm here to do a response to a video I haven't seen yet at all called People Tell a Pastor Why They Don't Believe in God. So here we go.
I don't personally believe, right? But it's like, that doesn't mean that we can't live the same way.
Hey there, I'm Erica Campbell. I'm a singer, a songwriter. I'm a mom, a wife, and all-around cool chick. So today I'm sitting down with people from different ends of the faith spectrum. We're just gonna have a healthy conversation. Can't wait to get into it. I'm really excited.
My name is Josh, and I am a former Christian.
Hi, I'm Emily, and
But
I
she didn't say
identify
she's a
as an
pastor.
atheist.
My name is Nina, and I identify as agnostic.
I was raised in a very strict Mormon household. I was the very first one in my family to leave the church. I have been a happy non-believer ever since.
I bet.
I guess technically I was raised in the Catholic faith, kind of by default. We went to church sometimes on Christmas, usually like weddings or funerals, something like that.
I grew up lightly Hindu. We're like culturally Hindu, but I kind of came to the conclusion that like whether or not there is a God or there isn't a God, like it has no bearing on like how I live my life.
I don't think she'll be able to in any way convert me suddenly back.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous.
Like I hope I don't say anything to offend her.
That's interesting. And when I have heard and seen many videos like this online and heard podcasts and so forth, I don't know of a single example in my experience, I've never heard one say, I came from what you would consider a mainstream, moderate, Bible-believing evangelical church or whatever. It's always a very conservative, or it's LDS, or it's a marginal Catholic at best, or it's fundamentalist, things like that. So unfortunately, I'm not surprised whatsoever to hear that's what they came from. So let's hear some other things. I'm curious if she's nervous too. That's interesting.
Hey,
Hey there,
I'm Josh.
I'm Erica.
I'm Emily.
Erica.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Hey.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nina?
Yes, I'm Nina.
Erica, nice to meet you. So I'm a Christian. How would you identify?
Atheist,
Atheist.
non-believer,
So do you believe that like there's no God, or there's something out there and you don't know what it is?
nothing.
Nothing.
I identify as an atheist.
If like agnosticism and atheism is like a spectrum, I'm like somewhere in it.
I think that when we die, it's lights out, and that's the blissful end to all of it.
Is that
And
bliss though? Like
It is.
So let me ask you a question. What do you believe exists beyond the universe? It's like the area where our minds kind of exist, not the human, not the tangible.
I don't think that that exists either.
You don't?
I don't. I think that everything that exists is what exists right here, right now, in this moment, in your body.
I was raised in the Catholic community. I just remember the first
And I appreciate, I think the Christian, I guess I don't think she said she's a pastor, but anyway, I don't care, but the title of the video is Tells the Pastor Why They Don't Believe. That's great. I typically encourage people, don't do what she's doing, which is, so does that mean you believe blank, 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 blank? So the reason why is for a lot of people get very offended and their feelings hurt, or they get very angry because you feel like you're telling them what they believe. So a great follow-up is, can you say more about that? When you say atheist, what do you mean by that? Or when you say agnostic, what do you mean by that? Or if you say, this is all that exists in this room right now, okay, can you say more about that? You can ask follow-up questions, but I'm saying is we try our best not to put words in their mouth, and that way they don't get too worked up. So far, they don't seem to be worked up, but I wouldn't do it the exact same way she's done it.
thing we talked about was Adam and Eve, and I just remember being like, that's just like a little story.
But culturally, we're Hindu. Personally, for me, it felt like a lot of the stories of it, or they're just like stories. There's a lot of like people with multiple arms and like angels are blue, which is like not real.
So I was raised Mormon. My mom.
Okay, and I agree with that. I think Hinduism is completely false. I think Mormonism is completely false. I think Roman Catholicism is not completely false. I think there are things about that are false. And so a few things come to my mind. One is to say that so far all their background stories, part of me thinks, I'm glad you left it. It does not follow from that there's no God or that you shouldn't believe in God. It follows from that you think your particular religion in which you grew up is false. That would be a true belief that it is false. The other thing is that's confusing is when you do videos like this and they go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, it almost sounds like all their stories are the same. That's precisely what I encourage people not to do. You want to make sure you're not assuming the person in front of you has the same story or the same beliefs. I found that to be the truth no matter what. And yeah, it can be frustrating, particularly nerds like me, when you like words and words matter. I'm not talking about being perfect and flawless of all your particular articulations, but for example, if you have a certain view, if you know what the origin or the etymology of the word atheist is, or unique, or whatever the issue is, and you assume the person in front of you has the same view, you're going to find yourself very frustrated. that other person frustrated because you'll say, no, it means, and it's worthless. So I tend to ask the question every time, no matter if they say I'm an atheist, I'm this, you go, okay, cool, can you tell me more? What do you mean by that? And you ask a lot more questions than I assume, because that also assumes their stories are different. I don't assume, oh, you're an atheist? I met a guy yesterday who's an atheist. He must have the exact same views you do. And no, just because you say the word atheist doesn't mean we held the same view. So we ask.
I helped run the Relief Society. My dad was a bishop for a long time. My grandpa was a bishop. I was the very first member of my family to walk away from it all.
They
And
respond to that.
not well at first.
I grew up similar to you, but mine was a Pentecostal church called the Church of God in Christ. And my father was a preacher, my mom was over the choir. But there was a lot of things that didn't always make sense to me, like why we were so poor. If you live for Jesus, everything's supposed to work out right, But the same way, I wouldn't doubt love because people have gotten love wrong. And that's kind of how I feel about God. And I think it's very reassuring to me that after this is over, there's something greater. So most people who don't believe, there was some, traumatic church experience or some long line of this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. Okay, y'all don't make sense, so maybe he doesn't make sense.
I do find fault with Catholicism in general.
We're not really practicing, so we weren't praying or studying or anything. And so I just kind of fell away from that as a religion.
I got kicked out of Sunday school because I was arguing with the teacher about the age of the earth. In 6 days, 6,000 years, I'm like, but dinosaurs.
I grew up in a church where secular music was a sin. Everybody was the devil, you can't interact, it's gonna infiltrate you.
My mom, her favorite saying growing up was, the devil gets to you in little ways.
Yes.
Like the first time I wanted a mohawk at 9 years old, she was like, devil gets to you through your hair. Like,
Yeah.
I got really lucky and I have
Yeah, it's interesting. I really appreciate how I can't remember her name, the woman who's the interviewer, how she's asking questions and she seems relatable and she's laughable. I think that's fantastic. I think really do, because she comes across as nice and kind and comes across as nervous, but it's very cool. That's right. The one thing that's problematic, and she's probably doing this on purpose, and which I understand and respect it, which is I'm trying to relate to you by saying, yeah, when I was a kid, it was kind of like you share horror stories. And that's I understand that to a degree, and I kind of understand that to a degree. I mean, I guess I would do that sometimes, but in general, I don't. My view is more the sense of, I'm so sorry you experienced that. That's horrible. That is, it's not about two people coming out of horrible backgrounds, as it is to say, you went through that. It's not about me, it's about you right now. The second thing is, of course, Jesus was not that way. I want to get as quickly as possible to Jesus, not our backgrounds, not our parents, not... My mom used to say the devil's in my hair. Man, I'm so sorry. Golly, that sounds silly. I'm so glad Jesus never said that. Because you keep thinking about Jesus, not about your parents. And so I just want to get to the facts. I want to get to truth faster than just because my mom or dad said something or, so forth.
great parents and, they were like, be kind, be a good person, help each other out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I feel like my moral compass
It's good.
I hope so. I think so. I'm working on it.
the core of Mormon belief.
Why? Why are you hoping that your moral compass is good? But really though, why? You're an atheist. I'm asking the question, why? Why does it matter if you have a moral compass, and why does it matter if you're getting better? And I agree with that vocabulary word. I think you do. Do we apprehend a moral law, the moral compass in your words? I think it's exactly right. But why does that matter to you? And why does it matter if you're getting better? And based upon what? So you predicated morality based upon what? Because if you're an atheist and there is no such thing as an objective moral value, a moral law out there to which we all can appeal, how do you know if you're getting better, and why even care? If we're just a version of evolved chimps, why does that matter at all? And usually the response is, David, that's a dumb question. We all know we should do that. Well, I agree we should, but I know why we should. I'm curious. I really am curious. I'd pause. Can you tell me more about that? Can you tell me more? Why do you think that's true? Is it just because you're trying to please your parents? Do you have a subconscious wounded child who wants to make sure mom and daddy are happy? Or you say, no, it's not that. It's bigger than that. There's really something inside of me that says, I need to be better. And I'd say, let's talk more about that. I would love to hear more of your thoughts on why do you think you have that deep impulse to be better? Where do you think that comes from? I think they'll point you to something bigger than atheism.
Is the Holy Bible, the King James Version specifically.
Yeah.
Every time I read something, what I saw was a twist for human gain.
I know all the same stories and I had the very same questions. And what
I probably should have said this earlier, but I think I'm already thinking about several things. And one is when I hear this comment too, I got thrown out of Sunday school, or I got kicked out because I was arguing with people and I shouldn't, and so forth. My very first thought is how much that frustrates me. It frustrates me. Now, he's part of the LDS, and I don't think LDS are absolutely not part of Orthodox Christianity. They have an additional canon that doesn't have additional collection of documents they consider authoritative. It's like saying they have another Bible. So all that to say, we already have a very fundamental different view about LDS, whether or not they're Christians or not, than apparently he does. But when I hear anybody say that they've kicked out of Sunday school because of some views, that makes me sad and frustrated that a teacher would ever do that. That's because I'm not scared of questions. I'm not scared of frustration, kids who are being frustrated. I don't understand that. I don't get that. Okay, let's talk about it. Now, there's a time appropriate issue. Sometimes there's other 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds in the classroom who don't care about that, and one person doesn't have the right to dominate the conversation. Of course not. But nevertheless, you don't kick them out of class. You don't say be quiet, and so you just don't do that. That stuff is just, it breeds this kind of nonsense. It tells people I can't ask questions, or it means I cannot ever doubt something, or I can't ever challenge a person, and I don't find that persuasive.
I feel like, what I know the Bible is, it is all an example of how crazy and chaotic our world is. If you believed in God, what would that look like to you?
I feel like if there was a God, I think it would be something like kind of unimaginable that I couldn't like process as a human being.
Do you believe in life after?
Why is that? I mean, this is follow-up questions, but maybe she does and it's edited.
I don't. Before I was like, I don't know, maybe like raw energy, like what happens to us when we're dead, like, and nobody knows. And that's the crazy thing, right? And, but very recently, actually.
And that's why I'd say, oh no, we do. There are a few billion people on the planet who do know what happens. Would you like to hear more about that? Well, how do you know? Because of hundreds of millions of reports the last few thousand years of people who have in fact died and come back. There are numerous books on this written by people who aren't even Christians. So this is documented. There's data for this. How do you know you've been to Disney World? Well, because I've been there and I write books about going to Disney World. There's first-hand testimony witness of people around the globe. So that's the kind of stuff, when people say things like that, it's okay to challenge that, to say, well, that's not true. People do in fact know. It's not something you just quote unquote take on faith and hope it's true. We have documented cases of people coming back from the dead knowing things they've never known before. They gain new knowledge. It is physically impossible.
My twin brother passed away this summer. And so I've been, thank you, but I've been, like searching for him, and I've been like trying to be kind of like open, like if it is like a thing, like please freaking talk to me, you know what I mean? And like I haven't felt it. I haven't felt him. I haven't seen him. And so that kind of for me was like, okay, like he's just dead. And that's, something that I'm just kind of like, okay, like I'm just never gonna see him again. He's still, with me every day, and I think about him every single day. But it's like I just, I was open for it, and I still am. Like if something were to happen or whatever. But like, me thinking about him every day and remembering him and everything that I do, it's like I feel like that for me is like enough.
Every time I look at any form of...
I'm so sorry. I would tell a person, I've heard this, usually there's some tragedy involved. I'm so very sorry. I really am very sorry for her. I am. And I probably just spend energy there. But if someone's really asked a question about God, and her question was about the afterlife, and she said, well, I wanted to believe in something, and I keep asking if you're going to show up and say something and do something, but he didn't do it, therefore I know he's dead. Surely we can draw the conclusion that a person is dead because of scientific reasons. Their heartbeat has stopped, the brain waves have stopped, they're dead. That is to say, I can come to the conclusion someone's dead without the absence of hearing someone after they're dead to know that they are dead. In other words, everyone knows he's dead if he's dead. The question she's asking is there an afterlife? And so it also does not follow to say, well, I know there's not an afterlife. Why? Because I asked my brother to see him or hear from him, and I didn't do it, therefore I know there's no afterlife. Well, that's an absolutely false. That is a solipsism. That doesn't follow whatsoever. It's a logical non sequitur. So because that doesn't make any sense. How do I know my son still exists? Well, if he didn't show up, Hayden right now, he didn't show up, therefore I know I'll never hear from him. I'll never meet him again. Well, that doesn't make any sense. You'd have to presume that your deceased sibling would be able to appear or hear from the afterlife at all times. So that doesn't follow. So sometimes just real logical things, just simple logical things like that, if in our own mind, if we challenge them and go, wait a second, it doesn't follow. And earlier this pastor Christian woman said something similar. She said, it's like when I meet people, just because some people get love wrong doesn't mean love doesn't exist. And if I were the atheist guy with a mustache, if he's more of a philosopher or thinking person, he's going to say, that's true. But love doesn't exist the way you think God exists. He doesn't believe that. He says everything happens in our body. Love is an emotional state. It's not something that exists. It's a psychosomatic experience inside a person's body. Maybe a neurological, but it's not a thing that exists like you believe God exists. That's why the analogy is false. All that my point is, sometimes logic works on everyone's side. I'm not saying logic's the only way to get to Jesus. It's just sometimes if someone believes something false that really is silly, sometimes it's okay to say, can you help me understand more about that? Because I don't see how that logically follows to the end. And if I'm not here to challenge you, I'm not here to make fun of you or embarrass you. I'm just curious, because if it is false, maybe that might change your view on something, right? Just as much as I appreciate if I go, oh, I wasn't thinking that way. That makes sense to me.
Of organized religion, the only thing I see is division. More wars have been fought over religion than anything else.
Yeah.
Whereas when I look at a world with no religion, you suddenly, everyone has to own up to just what they are and who they are. They can no longer hide behind and say, well, I won't bake a cake for these gay couple because my religion says that I don't have to. You can't hide behind that.
There's always going to be conflict in religion because religion is...
I mean, that's absolutely, demonstrably, historically false. And this works on YouTube and BuzzFeed videos, but anybody knows anything whatsoever about history knows that's absolutely false. It is not true that more wars and more battles have been fought because of religion. That's absolutely false. It works, again, it works for YouTube videos. It doesn't work in the real world of historical scholarship. It just doesn't work. So the second idea, of course, is, well, you can't hide behind things. That's right. That's exactly right. You can't hide behind things. Instead, when you don't hide behind religion, you have raw, straight up naturalism, which is survival of the fittest. That's all you have. And so anybody's will can conquer on someone else's will, and that's it. That's what's happened forever. That's just history. So that stuff is just a bit frustrating too, because it's just silly. It's just silly that religion is, what he just said, is false.
Man-made. You know, you see these movies and there's always a devil on one shoulder and an angel. I really think that's real. I think there's always a battle for the best of us and the worst of us. If there was one question of God that you could...
And maybe she meant that metaphorically. I mean, that image actually comes from Islam. And I'd be shocked if she really does believe there's a devil on her shoulder and an angel on the other. When she said, I think that's real. Again, she might mean, I think it's real that there's a struggle, versus the image I just gave is real. If it is an image she just gave is real, then I would say that's not Christian at all. There's nothing in Christianity to teach you there's a devil on one side and an angel on the other. In Islam, there's a version of that, and they're called jinn, and it's where we get the word genie. But jinn, or I do a little spirit anyway. And if I get 200 likes, I'll do a video on Islam if you're interested. And I wouldn't say that at all. So I guess the point is a struggle. Nevertheless, I wouldn't concede false things. This Christian pastor, if she may not know the difference. I'm not being mean. She may not know the difference at all. But again, I do not concede things that are false. I don't. And so I'd go, oh, I hear you, but man, that's just not true. And all the research I've ever done that says that's completely false. And so I wouldn't concede it. I wouldn't say, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of arguing Christians. I just wouldn't do that. But
ask if you believed in God, what would you ask?
That's a really hard one.
Is it? Girl, ask everything.
And there would probably be a lot of general, just like whys.
But he cares about you, and that's what I know for sure. Yes, you. What makes you happy? What makes you sad?
I feel so small. And like the concept of a God, it feels so big, like I said.
Yeah.
And I feel so small, and it seems impossible to me that anything that oversees like our whole world or our whole universe would have time for me.
Absolutely. I think that there's still a lot of questions there.
that's fantastic. I wish you would stay there and say, yeah, can you say more? You're right. That sense of, if there is a God, he or it or she, I think she even said he, that God is so big that there's not much time for me, that I feel so small, that you're onto something. That's what we call, back from the Latin word, we call it the word numinous. There's something that's otherworldly, that's not the only term for it, but that adjective would probably fit here. There's something to where I feel so small and petty, and in the presence of God, there's something other that makes me feel so puny and little. I'm thinking, you're onto something. You're getting a good image. The second thing I'd say is that particular person's background was Hinduism. And so this person, at least in the edit in this video, the Christian didn't say, let me explain that a little more, because the understanding the Christian view of God is not like Hinduism. So we believe in one and only one, all-powerful, creator, sustainer God in three persons. We do not believe in Ganesh and Shakti and all these pluralism that you have. So we'd have to spend some time saying, when I say God, I'm curious, we might mean something different. So I would ask this woman who's an atheist or agnostic, what do you mean by that? When you say the term God, what do you mean by that? I want to make sure we're not talking past each other. We might just have different understandings of God. So when she said, God does care about you, what makes you happy, what makes you sad? Of course, from the Christian perspective, I'm conjuring up a particular view of God that with which she probably agrees, but not with the Hindu. I wonder if she has any idea of what the Christian means.
You know what I mean? Even from what you've said, still a lot of questions, and I think that's the best way to be, like to always ask why, the whys of the whys. Why do I feel this way? Why don't I believe? Could I believe again?
Right.
You know, what could cause me to believe again? Because clearly there's something that caused me not to believe. If I told you that I would pray for you, what would you ask me to pray for?
I'll pause there. I really appreciate it. She keeps asking. I think her point is keep asking the why, because it's okay to ask questions. I think that's great. I really think it's great. I don't think I would end there. I don't think I'd say, I think it's always good. Why? Next. I mean, well, I guess I would articulate a bit different to say, I think it's very wise of you and healthy to ask these questions to try to find some resolution. Secondly, I really hope you'll read and talk to reputable people on the topic before you make up your mind. There's a lot of garbage out there, as my children have taught me the word garbage. There's a lot of garbage out there on the internet, and so if you want to lead some, I mean, the best thing is stop learning that and go to school and get a good education and so forth. But all that to say, it's not enough to ask the question why, because you're going to ask the question why on TikTok, on Facebook, on Google, on whatever, on YouTube. And then see, I knew it. I found this one guy, this one girl who used to be a Christian for 4 years, and then she left the faith, or he left the faith, and he's full of tats, and now he's free. He used to be LDS, and he felt what I felt, or she felt what I felt, and went through the same scenario, and that's it. Yeah, and they said the Bible's just stupid and full of mess, and you know, we can be good people without them, and and religions cause all the wars, and all the same trite, dumb things people say online, and it is dumb, and it is trite, and they'll say, see, I knew it. And that's just confirmation bias, right? We just want to go find something that already agrees to the conclusion we already have. It makes us feel better. Usually at our core, it makes us feel better to go do something we think we feel guilty for doing. And so if I'm a lesbian, if I'm gay, I'm this or that, and I don't want someone to tell me I can't do it. So at its core, a lot of times there's a sense of rebellion. I just want to behave a certain way, and religion tells me I can't do it. And so I find 3 or 4 or 5 things that look like good arguments, but if you put this into a professional paper and present it at a professional meeting, you'd be laughed out. I mean, these are really, really bad kindergarten level stuff that you see online all the time. So I would say that to a person to say, please, you don't take my word for it, but I can give you a whole host of scholars of different backgrounds, non-religious backgrounds, that will really help you. So please don't get it all from BuzzFeed.
Oh, that's a great question. Probably not for me, but for like my family, I think. Yeah, just for them to be like well and good and happy.
Yeah.
From my perspective,
See, God's more, he's
everything
Santa
you
Claus.
said, you can do without any religion. And it's completely freeing for me. The most free I ever felt was the day I walked away and said, I don't have to believe in any of this stuff anymore. Because to me, God, religion, all of it, it's completely superfluous to human existence. You don't need it. You can live a happy, productive, good, charitable life without it.
I believe in, if there's a good, there has to be a bad. We can't always explain some of the complexities and craziness of this world, but I think God brings gravity to it all, to the question.
I love hearing what you have to say.
I appreciate that when someone says, I felt so free. And every time I hear a person say that ever, and I've heard that many times of people who left the faith, particularly and almost exclusively when they left the LDS or they left fundamentalism, I've never felt so free. Or Islam, I've never felt so free. My response always, I bet you did feel free. I bet you felt incredibly free, because those are oftentimes tyrannical, oppressive systems. No wonder you felt free. But that's about also in the world of psychology. No wonder you feel free, because you felt oppressed all this time. And I'm sorry that you felt that way. See, I am religious. I'm of a particular religion called Christianity, and at no point do I feel oppressed. I don't feel like there's a tyrant above me telling me everything I can and cannot do, and I don't have that sensation whatsoever, which means I don't have the impulse to flee from it, because I just don't feel that. And I've been a Christian for a long time, and I've been in ministry for a long time, and I've never felt oppressed and pushed down, and so I don't understand that kind of viewpoint at all. So I would say I'd stick there for a while than I would. The other thing is, you can have happy, productive life without religion. On the one hand, I'd say is, okay. Is that why you, see, this is another example of how almost everyone I've ever met and heard about treats religious views. It's something you have to add to your life to make your life better. See, I have a very different view on that. I do have a very different view. I don't think any religion should be followed because you think it provides a particular benefit for you. I think you should follow a particular religion because it's true or false. It is irrelevant whether or not it helps you at all. Is it true or false? It is irrelevant whether or not it's true or false that Disney World exists, whether I feel better. Does it exist or not? It might make some lifestyle changes. Maybe I have to send money there. Maybe I have to do certain things, but maybe it doesn't affect my life to make it worse or better. Maybe it's just an amoral, that is a neutral thing. But if it exists, it matters. And that's something just as a city, as a town, whatever it is. My point is, anyway, I don't care about whether it makes you feel good. I care about whether it's true or false. Well, the third thing I'd say real quickly is when he says, I can lead a happy good. You can be happy. Absolutely, you can be happy. Absolutely. Gangsters are happy, pedophiles are happy, politicians are happy. Absolutely. Yep, that's right. And the goal of your existence, if you think it's to be happy, that leads you to the second, which is good. No. You cannot be happy all the time and good all the time. Can't happen. Can't happen. Humans cannot be happy all the time and good all the time. To be happy all the time, you have to do things that are not good. The question is, what is good? And I agree, it's a great question. But if I'm an atheist, there's no God, what you mean by good is, what you should mean by good, if you're being logically accurate and consistent, is to say good is what I think I prefer, or my society prefers. I'm going to say, right, well, for Hitler and the Nazis, they preferred to get rid of Jews. That made them very, very, very happy. But I think what they did was very, very, very wrong and evil. But I have a moral ground to say that. I know where that idea comes from. But society can't tell me that. If society tells me you have Stalin, you've got Mother Teresa, you've got America, you've got Nazis, it's a free-for-all, and you can't say one's worse or one's better. The only way you can say someone's worse, someone's better, is if you assume there's a moral law that transcends all of us to which we are appealing.
I don't think I necessarily agree with all of it.
So I believe that God knows you. He knows your name. He knows how many hairs are on your head. And your beautiful hair, by the way.
Thank you.
I had to purchase mine. Nevertheless, I think he knows everything about you and wants to know more.
This has been such a great conversation, and you're such a warm, I feel really comfortable here. Yeah, this has been really great.
Awesome.
It's been amazing talking to you.
Great talking to you, Emily. I will be praying for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Well, that is a win. That doesn't mean that maybe everything she wants to accomplish, but that's fantastic that a person ever says, hey man, I'm so glad I feel safe around you, warm. That is fantastic. Hope they can keep conversations going. I think that's just wonderful. Good stuff. One thing that's a bit sad about this whole, now maybe she said it and it was all edited out. One thing that makes me sad when people talk about religion and then they talk about God is they never mention Jesus. And that is just striking to me that we keep it in this, it seems very out there because God can mean basically anything you want it to mean. Religion can mean anything you want it to mean. I mean, they just talked to a former LDS and a Hindu and a Catholic. I mean, those are extremely different backgrounds, and yet they're all lumped together with, quote, religion and God. And I think who really parts the ways and the line in the sand is going to be Jesus. And so we go to Jesus. Jesus didn't cause any wars. Jesus didn't cause any wars. Jesus, it wasn't divided. Jesus wasn't a hypocrite. All the things people want to make up about things, Jesus wasn't. So if you're a Christian, I encourage you to talk about Jesus. He's the hero. He's the hero. He's the somebody. I'm a nobody. And we put our faith in him because of what he's done for us, how he's died on the cross for us. We have enormous amount of historical evidence for his existence, his teachings, his death, and his resurrection. So there's good reasons to put our trust in him. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something from it. If you don't mind, click subscribe, share this video with your friends, click like, and hey, write some comments down there. Let us know what you think about what I said. I also have a second channel, Dr. David Pendergrass Shorts. I'm also on TikTok. Check out my videos on TikTok. Follow me there and share with your friends if you want to see content under 60 seconds. See you online.